what's behind the title, and what were the highlights for this? Why Someone Knows My Name? What's the significance of that?
My protagonist is named Aminata Diallo. She's born in the country now known as Mali, a landlocked country in West Africa where I've worked as a volunteer and traveled and worked in other West African countries as well. She has an African name, a Muslim name. When she's brought into the Sea Islands of South Carolina as a child slave in the 1750s, nobody, of course, calls her Aminata. Her name is lost. But even before she gets to South Carolina, while she's in the slave vessel that's bringing her to the Americas, she finds some people whom she knows, people that she recognizes, and one man in particular who's from a village, one young boy really, from a village not too far from hers. And he's captured and he's chained in this vessel, and she says his name. And he is so heartened to hear his name vocalized in this utterly inhuman process of enslavement and capture in the Middle Passage. He's so gratified that this young girl says his name, and he cries out, "Someone knows my name." It makes me feel like a human being again, or at least partly again human. And so the phrase takes its root during the Middle Passage, but I think it resonates throughout the book, because throughout the book, Aminata is looking to return home, but also looking for her validation as a human being in the United States and in Canada. And that's a very hard thing to find, and it's very hard even to find her name accepted and understood. And so Someone Knows My Name really is a title that evokes both the recognition of oneself and the search for one's humanity in a continent that often doesn't want to grant it.
Right, and it also speaks to the theme of this book, which really resonates and makes one really want to reflect on one's own life, and also the importance of history and remembering.
Absolutely, and she's motivated throughout her entire life by the faint but fierce hope that maybe one day she'll be able to go back home and tell her story. And somehow she feels that if she can tell her story, if somebody can hear her story, the outrageous experiences that she's endured and survived, that somehow it will be worth something if she can vocalize and be her experiences and be heard. So Someone Knows My Name, you're absolutely right, Brenda, evokes the idea that she wants her name and her story to be recognized so she can feel human.
It's obvious you've done a lot of research.
I have.
For this book.
I have.
What was that like for you?
Well, it was life-changing. Part of it involved working and traveling a number of times as a volunteer with a nonprofit organization in various countries in West Africa, Mali, Cameroon, and Niger. So those experiences changed my life profoundly, and they changed my writing and the direction of my writing as well. Part of it involved traveling to some of the places in the United States where Aminata lives, the Sea Islands of South Carolina, Manhattan and so forth, Charleston, South Carolina, Nova Scotia, Canada. Part of it involved just trying to imagine being a woman at this time, and really I gave my character the name of my daughter. My daughter's middle name is Aminata, my eldest child, and I gave her my daughter's name in order to think of her as my child and hopefully bring her off the page more vividly. So it was a wrenching and very emotional experience for me. It wasn't just an intellectual exercise, but it was a deeply felt, cathartic experience to write the novel. Aminata goes to England at the behest of the abolitionists to serve in this crusade to bring about abolition. So she's there in 1802, and she's very old, and this is her voice. I seem to have trouble dying. By all rights, I should not have lived this long. But I can still smell trouble riding on any wind, just as surely as I could tell you whether it is a stew of chicken necks or pig's feet bubbling in the iron pot on the fire. And my ears still work just as good as a hound dog's. People assume that just because you don't stand straight as a sapling, you're deaf, or that your mind is a texture of pumpkin mush. The other day, when I was being led into a meeting with a bishop, one of the society ladies told another, "We must get this woman into Parliament soon. Who knows how much longer she'll be with us?" Half bent though I was, I dug my fingers into her ribs. She let out a shriek and spun around to face me. "Careful," I told her, "I may outlast you." There must be a reason why I've lived in all these lands, survived all those water crossings, while others fell from bullets, or shut their eyes, or simply willed their lives to end. In the earliest days when I was free and knew nothing other, I used to sneak outside our walled compound, climb straight up the acacia tree while balancing Father's Koran on my head, sit way out on a branch and wonder how I might one day unlock all the mysteries contained in the book. Feet swinging beneath me, I would put down the book, the only one I'd seen in Bayeux, and look out at the patchwork of mud walls and thatched coverings. People were always on the move. Women carrying water from the river, men working iron in the fires, boys returning triumphant from the forest with snared porcupines. It's a lot of work, extracting meat from a porcupine, but if they had no other pressing chores, they would do it anyway, removing the quills, skinning the animal, slicing out the innards, practicing with their sharp knives on the pathetic little carcasses. In those days, I felt free and happy, and the very idea of safety never intruded on my thoughts. I have escaped violent endings even as they have surrounded me, but I never had the privilege of holding on to my children, living with them, raising them the way my own parents raised me for 10 or 11 years until all of our lives were torn asunder. I never managed to keep my own children long, which explains why they are not here with me now, making my meals, adding straw to my bedding, bringing me a cape to hold off the cold, sitting with me by the fire with the knowledge that they had emerged from my loins and that our shared moments had grown like corn stalks in damp soil. Others take care of me now, and that's a fine thing, but it's not the same as having one's own flesh and blood to cradle one toward the grave. I long to hold my own children, and their children, if they exist, and I miss them the way I'd miss limbs from my own body. They have me exceedingly busy here in London. They say I'm to meet King George. About me, I have a clutch of abolitionists, big-whiskered, wide-bellied, bald-headed men boycotting sugar but smelling of tobacco and burning candle after candle as they plot deep into the night. The abolitionists say that they've brought me to England to help them change the course of history. Well, we shall see about that. But if I've lived this long, it must be for a reason. Fa means father in my language. Ba means river. It also means mother. In my early childhood, my ba was like a river, flowing on and on and on with me through the days and keeping me safe at night. Most of my lifetime has come and gone, but I still think of them as my parents, older and wiser than I. And I still hear their voices, sometimes deep-chested, at other moments floating like musical notes. I imagine their hands steering me from trouble, guiding me around cooking fires in the cool shade of our home and leading me to the mat where I sleep at night. I can still picture my father with a sharp stick over hard earth, scratching out Arabic in flowing lines and speaking of the distant Timbuktu. In private moments, when the abolitionists are not swirling about like tornadoes, seeking my presence in this deputation or my signature atop that petition, I wish my parents were still here to care for me. Isn't that strange? Here I am, a broken-down old black woman who's crossed more water than I care to remember, and walked more leagues than a workhorse, and the only things I dream of are things I can't have, children and grandchildren to love, and parents to care for me. The other day they took me into a London school and had me talk to the children. One girl asked if it was true that I was the famous Mina D, the one mentioned in all the newspapers. Her parents, she said, did not believe that I could have lived in so many places. I acknowledged that I was Mina D, but that she could call me Aminata Diallo if she wanted, which was my childhood name. We worked on my first name for a while. After 3 tries, she got it. Aminata. 4 syllables. It's really not that hard. Aminata, I told her. She said she wished I could meet her parents and her grandparents. I replied that it amazed me that she still had grandparents in her life. Love them good, I told her, and love them big. Love them every day. She asked why I was so black. I asked why she was so white. She said she was born that way. Same here, I replied. I can see that you must have been quite pretty, even though you are so very dark, she said. You would be prettier if London never got any sun, I replied. She asked what I ate. My grandfather says he bets you eat raw elephant. I told her I'd never actually taken a bite out of an elephant, but there had been times in my life when I was hungry enough to try. I chased 300 or 400 of them in my life, but never managed to get one to stop rampaging through villages and stand still long enough for me to take a good bite. She laughed and said she wanted to know what I really ate. I eat what you eat, I told her. Do you suppose I'm going to find an elephant walking about the streets of London? Sausages, eggs, mutton stew, bread, crocodiles, all those regular things. Crocodiles, she said. I told her I was just checking to see if she was listening. She said she was an excellent listener and wanted me to please tell her a ghost story. Honey, I said, my life is a ghost story. Then tell it to me, she said. As I told her, I am Aminata Diallo, daughter of Mamadou Diallo and Sira Koulibaly, born in the village of Bayo, 3 moons by foot from the Grain Coast in West Africa. I am a Bamana and a Fula. I am both, and we'll explain that later. I suspect I was born in 1745, or close to it. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. This is your host, Dr. Brenda Green, host of Writers on Writing. We've been talking with Lawrence Hill, the author of Someone Knows My Name. Please go out and support this writer and purchase this book. Remember, the writer is always reading, the reader is always writing. Keep reading and writing and empower yourselves as readers and writers. Thank you, Lawrence.
Thank
It's
you,
been so
Brenda.
nice talking to you
My
and finally
pleasure.
meeting you.
Likewise, and I'll keep reading and writing, as you
Okay.
suggest.
Yeah, always reading and writing, creating that relationship.
Yeah, one is so interlinked. Aren't they? I couldn't live without one or the other.